What do you see when you look at her? A singer, an actress, a Hollywood starlet, or perhaps just a gorgeous icon? Well, you are not wrong, but what if there's more to Marilyn Monroe? You are about to find out. But first hit the subscribe button. It's going to be a revealing ride. She had a dark childhood. Before she became the legendary Marilyn Monroe, she was a little girl called Jean Norma Mortensen, a girl whose childhood was dark and disturbing. When other kids were receiving care and attention from their parents, Marilyn Monroe was left to face a sad reality. Her mother and only parent was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, a mental illness that had no cure. And because her father was not in the picture, her mother's illness affected her greatly. As a result of the situation, Marilyn had a difficult and unstable upbringing. She moved around a lot, staying in different places like orphanages, foster homes, and with various relatives and her mother's friends. There was no place called home, and she lived with the constant fear. Marilyn later revealed that she was treated badly by several men at a young age. She claimed that some of them went as far as touching her inappropriately, and this left her feeling broken and helpless. She was already a shy and quiet kid, and the experiences she endured made her retreat to her shell even more. She grew highly introverted and extremely anxious as the years went by, and no one knew the emotional scars she kept hidden. Thankfully, there was a ray of hope when a family friend, Grace Goddard, took her in when she was only 11 years old. In her memoir, she wrote about how this singular act of kindness changed her life. If not for Grace, I would have been sent to a state or country institution where there are fewer privileges. I was placed in 9 different families before I was able to quit being a legal orphan. Marilyn hated being an orphan in a foster home so much that she did the unimaginable just to escape that life. Her marriage of convenience. In early 1940s, Marilyn Monroe found herself facing a life-altering decision, one she didn't see coming. Her legal guardian, Grace McKee Goddard, who practically raised her, informed her that their family would be relocating to West Virginia. While this move seemed like a step in the right direction for the Goddards, it meant that Marilyn would no longer have a family to live with, and she would have to go back to the orphanage. Marilyn was devastated, especially because she couldn't imagine reliving all the horrible experiences she faced in orphanages, and forced her home, so she did something that was not ideal for someone her age. She married her neighbor's son, James Doherty, who was 21 years old at the time. At the tender age of 16, she found herself married to someone she barely knew, but it seemed like a small price to pay at the time, because their marriage gave her the stability that she needed. James and Marilyn tried to make things work for the first few months, but along the line they began to grow apart. As the world was engulfed in the chaos of World War II, James decided to join the Merchant Marines, leaving behind his new wife. On the other hand, Marilyn's life also took an unexpected turn. While her husband was away, her beauty and charisma began to capture the attention of modeling agencies, propelling her into the glamorous world of fashion and entertainment. Soon enough, it became clear that their lives were heading in different directions. They later made the decision to go their separate ways as Marilyn began to get even more famous. But little did she know, fame came with a really hefty price. Driven to substance abuse. To everyone else, Marilyn Monroe was a flawless woman who was the very image of perfection. But in reality, she was as human as everyone else, with her own personal fears and insecurities. Beneath the veneer of perfection lay a vulnerable woman plagued by her own personal demons, including a relentless struggle with anxiety and stage fright. She also struggled with depression for several years as a result of her traumatic childhood and the complications of fame. Interestingly, people didn't notice what she was going through behind closed doors because she had a way of masking her pain and putting on a show for the world. But when no one was watching, she took off the mask and wallowed in her pain. The pressure to deliver flawless performances, coupled with her own self-doubt, took a toll on her mental and emotional well-being, and soon enough, she found herself drowning in vices to maintain the image and expectations people had of her. Although she didn't necessarily like the spotlight, she needed it for financial stability, and deep within her, she wanted to leave a mark in the world. In an attempt to find solace, she sought refuge in prescription medications and substances that offered temporary relief. Unfortunately, this reliance only deepened her struggles, creating a dangerous spiral of addiction that further complicated her already fragile state of mind. But there was one more thing about Marilyn that shocks most of her fans, a small secret she tried to hide really well. She had a stutter. A lot of people don't know this about Marilyn Monroe, but her traumatic experiences caused her to develop a stutter that she struggled with for the most part of her life. In a 1955 interview, Marilyn spoke about how severe her speech impediment was and how it affected her greatly during her formative years. In the interview, Marilyn said, "I guess you could say I gave up talking for a long while. I used to be so embarrassed in school. I thought I'd die whenever a teacher called upon me. I always had the feeling of not wanting to open my mouth, that anything I said would be wrong or stupid." As she got older, she made a decision to speak less and say fewer words. She reportedly did multiple takes while filming some of her most famous roles because of the same issue. But as far as challenges go, this was sadly just the beginning for Marilyn. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Some of her co-stars claimed that she had a way of separating herself from the persona the world knew as Marilyn. The actress was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at a certain point in her life, and she was said to have been out of touch with reality. Actor Eli Wallach once witnessed this transformation firsthand as he walked alongside her on Broadway one evening. But something was wrong. He couldn't help but feel like he was with someone else entirely, even though he was with Marilyn. However, within moments, Marilyn transformed dramatically and began acting like herself again. Wallach was speechless. "I just felt like being someone else for a minute," Marilyn said to him later on. To make it even weirder, she would often refer to herself in the third person and even have full-blown conversations with her other personality. It's truly astonishing how Marilyn managed to uphold the facade of a flawless star during the golden age, all while grappling with a myriad of hidden mental issues.